So Saturday morning, we sat down right here and talked about a report that had Alabama offensive coordinator Ryan Grubb set to leave Tuscaloosa and head back to Seattle to take the same position with the Seattle Seahawks. But listed in that report were other names that could follow Grubb to the NFL. And yesterday, we finally got confirmation as to one of those names. Today, we have got to break this all down and talk about Scott Huff reportedly leaving Alabama and joining Grubb with the Seattle Seahawks and what this means going forward. But before we can, as always, y'all know the drill. I have got to hear from you. Hop down to the comments. Y for yes, N for no. Are you surprised that Scott Huff is leaving Alabama? And let me know what you're thinking. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. Hit that bell notification as I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it. And if you enjoyed the content, be sure to like and comment down below. But having said all that, let's jump right into this. And I'm going to be very forthright here. It's no secret that I was really excited for both Grubb and Huff, and especially when we talked about all of this staff coming together on the offensive side of the ball, I thought Alabama fans were in store for fireworks. And I'm not saying that that's not to be expected still. This is DeBoer's offense. That's one thing I do want to drive home every single time, that this is DeBoer's offense that Grubb was calling, but Grubb understood what DeBoer wanted to do. They were very close. They had a very close and positive relationship, and it showed on the football field that Grubb was in tune with where DeBoer would want to go, how to call the offense that DeBoer had created. Now, at the end of the day, you still have Kalen DeBoer, the guy who made the offense, the offensive guru. But there is no doubt that Ryan Grubb would have been a phenomenal addition to this Alabama staff, and there's a reason why myself and so many others were excited about the hire whenever it was announced that he was expected to follow Kalen DeBoer. This is someone who Nick Saban wanted to get just a year ago, and there's a reason for it, because he's a very bright offensive mind. There's a reason why Seattle wanted him, and once again, there's a reason why so many Alabama fans were excited at the prospect of him being the offensive coordinator. But once again, we always come back to this point that it is DeBoer's offense. So at the end of the day, I'm a lot less concerned about an offensive-minded coach finding an offensive coordinator to run his stuff as opposed to a defensive-minded coach who just lost an offensive coordinator and now they have got to make a lot of decisions. But there was a loss that Alabama sustained this weekend that did hit for me, and that was Scott Huff. Look, one thing I've talked about time and time again is that if you're questioning something on Alabama's offense this year, I don't think it's the wide receivers. I don't think it's the tight ends. I certainly don't think it's the running backs. I think your principled question on Alabama's offense this upcoming season is the offensive line, and how could it not be? It was one of the worst offensive lines in terms of consistency and in terms of sacks allowed in 2023, where they came in as the number 129 offensive line in the nation in sacks allowed, but this was not a new problem. In fact, if we look since 2021, Alabama's offensive line has averaged 99th in the nation in terms of sacks allowed and an average of 37 sacks allowed per year. This has been a problem that's dated back to 2021, and in fact, Alabama has not had an offensive line that's allowed under 20 sacks since 2020 and 2019. But if we look since 2021, this Alabama offensive line has struggled. In 2021, they allowed 41 sacks. In 2022, they allowed 22 sacks. And in 2023, 49 sacks. You're going to have a hard time, no matter who your offensive coordinator is if your offensive line cannot protect the quarterback. So as great as Ryan Grubb was, as excited as I was that he was going to be the offensive coordinator, Scott Huff, to me, was such a great hire because of what he did for this Washington offensive line. We just talked about the Alabama offensive line, but whenever we look at the Washington offensive line, we know they won the Joe Moore Award this past season, but they allowed less sacks in 2023 and in 2022 than Alabama allowed in the whole of 2023. And so there was a reason why I was so excited for this, because in order to maximize the offense that DeBoer has formulated, that Grubb would have been calling, you need to maximize your offensive line. Now, luckily for Alabama, even though I think that's the largest question on the offensive side of the ball, one thing I do admit is if you're building an offensive line, it's a great place to start whenever two of your guards are Tyler Booker and Jaden Roberts, and you have the highest graded returning center in all of college football that transferred in, Parker Brailsford. That's a great place to start an offensive line rebuild. But we do know that the offensive line has got to turn it around. They have the ability, but if it comes together, this Alabama offense will reach heights that Alabama fans haven't seen in a few years, and that's saying something. But we also know what this offensive staff is capable of. We know what DeBoer's offense is capable of. But at the end of the day, there's a reason, and I have another question for all of you. Who's a bigger loss? Is it Ryan Grubb or Scott Huff? And though I find them both to be losses, in my opinion, the bigger loss here is Scott Huff, and that's no disrespect to Ryan Grubb. There's a reason why I started this video off talking about how I've been so forthright and how excited I've been that Ryan Grubb would be the offensive coordinator, and I was 100% wrong. I have to eat my crow now as I ate my crow Friday, as I ate my crow Saturday. I thought Ryan Grubb would be staying as Alabama's offensive coordinator. I thought the pre-existing relationship with him and DeBoer would see to it that he would at least go for 1 year on this new journey, but I was wrong. I was wrong on that. He ended up taking the job to the NFL. So we're going to have to see what happens next, but I do believe there is a real principled argument to make that as much as you would love to keep Grubb, Huff is the big loss here because he provided a lot of consistency to that Washington offensive line, and Alabama's offensive line was in desperate need of that consistency. That's the hire that I'm really interested in watching because I think there's a few options you could do for the offensive coordinator role if you're Kalen DeBoer. I think there's a few options that are actually compelling, and we're going to talk about that at a later date. But for the offensive line, that's got to be a home run hire. Alabama's offensive line has struggled for too long, and we need to understand that success in football is largely determined by success in trenches. Alabama's offensive line has not been the offensive line of old that Alabama fans remember, that used to just roll people. That's not what Alabama has experienced over the past few years, and it's actually incredible how much success this Alabama team has had. It's a testament to what Nick Saban was doing and what the players were doing that they have had this level of sustained success with one of the worst offensive line play in all of college football. Remember, there's 131 to 133 teams rated, and over the past few years, since 2021, Alabama has averaged 99th in the nation. In 2021, they were number 120. In 2022, they were number 47. So a big jump in production from 2021 to 2022, but then a massive fall in production from 2022 to 2023, where they went from 47th in the nation in 2022 to 129th in the nation in 2023. That's not sustainable. The fact that Alabama went to a college football playoff game, that they beat Georgia, that they took Michigan to overtime, and had it not been for bad snaps, we might be talking about that game in a different light. That's incredible that Alabama found all that success. Meanwhile, they had an offensive line that was one of the most inconsistent in all of college football. If you fix that, sky truly is the limit for what this Alabama team and this Alabama offense can do. But it all comes down to fixing the trenches, and that's exactly why, ladies and gentlemen, though we need to replace an offensive coordinator, the offensive line coach is really the one I'm going to be dialed in on, and I can't wait to hear what you think. Hop down to the comments, let me know what you're thinking. Do you agree? Do you disagree? And if you disagree, please let me know why. Can't wait to hear from you. That's it. See you.